persons there that came in, and then one other. So that is why the repeated tests have gone up so significantly. And we hope and pray that all those tests come back negative so that they could go home to their communities and their families. Hopefully between tomorrow and Friday, they would have finished their 2-week quarantine period. So that's some hopefully good news there. Community tests stands at 821, all negative so far. The rest of the information remains the same, but we could go over it. Total number of positive cases to date, 116. Total number of discharges, 107. Total number of deaths remain the same, 8, 7 in Trinidad, 1 in Tobago. Total number of hospitalized patients remains at 1, and that person is stable and is able to walk around, what the doctors call ambulatory, and that person is in Cora. We still have some of our frontline nurses who are not positive, but who are serving out their 2-week quarantine period after their tour of duty. So they are in Napa. I think we have 29 nurses there who we are looking after at Napa. At Cascadia, we still have the 12 Cuban nurses. I do believe they will finish their quarantine period on Friday. And then we have 2 other individuals who recently joined at Cascadia. So that is the update on COVID-19 to date. I just want to spend a minute, Minister Cox, with your permission. As we close in on the end of the first week of our easing of restrictions, I just want to bring to the national community 2 quotes, one by Dr. Tedros and one by Dr. Carissa Etienne from PAHO. And Dr. Tedros yesterday said he warned that there was no guaranteed way of easing restrictions without triggering a second wave of infections. So we in Trinidad and Tobago are preparing for our second wave, and Dr. Nandram will talk to you about testing for that as we prepare. And Dr. Carissa Etienne is quoted as saying in a PAHO document sent to us this morning, only when countries have controlled transmission will they be in a position to implement a well-planned, cautious transition period. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what Trinidad and Tobago has been doing on the advice of the public health experts. It's a well-planned, cautious transition period, and we are coming to the end of the first week of that transition period. As we move forward, we are going to be communicating with the public, and we have started as of today, as to what the new normal means and how the country can adapt to the new normal as we adapt to the virus and adopt measures. So we started this advertising campaign this morning. It will run in all newspapers intermittently. It will be on all our social media platforms. It will be disseminated widely. What this does is starts to tell us what is the new normal and how we need to adapt to the new normal by wearing masks, by sanitizing, stay home if you are ill, and all the common sense public health measures. So we have started this today. This is in one newspaper this morning, and it will be rolled out across traditional media, social media, non-traditional media as we move forward. And we are asking the population to adopt this new model. How do you cough? Avoid touching your face. Very important to stop transmission. Stay home if you are ill. And to practice physical distancing as far as possible by keeping about 6 feet apart when appropriate. Wear a mask when you go out in public, and so on. So this is the start of our new behavior change model, and we are asking all persons, as far as humanly possible, to adopt it as we adapt to the virus. So, Minister Cox, that's my message for this morning, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Dr. Naresh Nandram, the Principal Medical Officer of Health Epidemiology, will provide an update on the national COVID-19 testing strategy. Dr. Nandram.
Thank you, Minister Cox. Pleasant good morning, honorable ministers, members of the media, and of course, our viewing public. I'd like to ask for our first slide, please. And what this slide shows is that all tests are simply not equal. We're still getting some information coming in through our feedback mechanisms as to whether or not all tests are the same. And I think it's worth reiterating that all tests are simply not the same. There are some tests that are diagnostic, and there's some tests that are serological. And I'll just like to quickly just go through the difference between them. So serological tests are often rapid test kits, whereas the test that is gold standard and recommended by the World Health Organization and recognized by the Ministry of Health is a molecular-based methodology. So in terms of accuracy and reliability, the gold standard test using molecular methods is the gold standard. And it's for that primary reason that the WHO recommends this methodology as opposed to serological methods. And it's also for this reason, accuracy and reliability, that the Ministry of Health recognizes this gold standard molecular-based test. There's several other differences that are worth noting. The first is that from the Ministry of Health's point of view, the earlier we can diagnose a patient, the better we can manage that patient clinically, and likely the better the patient will fare in the long term. And the accuracy of molecular-based testing, they're accurate from the first day a patient presents with a symptom up to about 10 days. So for the first 10 days that a patient has symptoms, these tests are very, very reliable. In contrast, serological tests do not have that degree of accuracy. They don't become even remotely accurate until after 10 days. Most of them become fairly a bit more reliable around 14 days. So it's not very useful for use in the hospital setting, which is why the World Health Organization does not recommend it for use in the hospital setting. Another key difference is the method in which the sample is procured. For molecular-based methods, we use a nasopharyngeal swab, which looks like a large Q-tip, and the sample is taken through the nostril. Serological tests are blood tests. Aside from that, the other key difference is the time frame in which you get a response. Because of the reliability and accuracy of molecular-based testing, these tests are conducted in a specialized laboratory by highly trained staff, and this process takes a period of hours. This as opposed to serological tests where results are available in the order of minutes. But with that comes an inherent degree of unreliability. Some of these tests, independent evaluations have shown, are only 50% accurate, and that's the same as flipping a coin to decide if someone has COVID or they don't, which is why the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization do not recognize these tests at this point in time. Second slide, please. The second slide shows the phases in which the national testing program is being rolled out. I'd like to make one important point. These phases run concurrently. They are not dependent on each other, and we're approaching all of them simultaneously. So it's, just to be clear, it's not that we're waiting to complete one phase to move on with another. We've been we've been chasing all of them and putting things in place to action all of them simultaneously. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the only laboratory available to Trinidad and Tobago was the Regional Reference Laboratory, CARFA, at the Caribbean Public Health Agency. And this was the first laboratory that facilitated COVID-19 testing in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago made a huge stride in the establishment of local testing capability for COVID-19 with the collaborative effort to open UE's virology lab under the direction of the Ministry of Health. And this was a game changer for us. This allowed Trinidad and Tobago to set their own testing criteria, and in so doing enabled us to do things that we were a bit more restricted in doing initially, such as expanding community testing, processing a larger number of samples. And this really did increase our capacity to respond. The next phase I'd like to talk about is the expansion of our local testing capacity. And this will be done through the establishment of molecular-based labs at the NCRHA, the North Central Regional Health Authority, MRF, the Medical Research Foundation, and SWRHA, the Southwest Regional Health Authority. These institutions already have the equipment on site, and that these are things that we've been putting in place for some time. The next phase that will take place is the decentralization of COVID-19 testing into the major hospitals. Near point-of-care machines will be placed at the Scarborough General Hospital, Port of Spain General Hospital, San Fernando General Hospital, Sandy Grande Hospital, and at Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex. And these machines are different to the usual molecular-based machines. While they use the very same molecular technology, the machines for near point-of-care testing at the major hospitals have a huge advantage in that they have a very short turnaround time for results. Within an hour of receiving a sample, the laboratories at these major hospitals will now be able to, should be able to provide a COVID-19 result within the space of 1 hour. And that is a game changer for our healthcare workers on the ground. Within the space of an hour, they should be able to determine whether or not a patient is COVID positive or COVID negative, and then manage them accordingly. And all these phases have, work's been going on in the background simultaneously to pull all these phases forward. The last slide that I'd like to talk about briefly is just the prioritization of the persons that for testing. So our top tier priority are persons within the hospital system. These are people that are very ill. Any person within a hospital setting that has respiratory symptoms, and anyone that presents at the accident and emergency department with symptoms that may be COVID-19, there are our top priorities to be tested. Following them are our healthcare workers. Our healthcare workers are on the front lines, and we need to take care of them. There are a group of persons that we prioritize. So any healthcare worker that becomes symptomatic, that has a history of being exposed to persons that may have had COVID, they are our priority for testing. And the last group I'd like to talk about are special groups. There are certain smaller groups of persons that have certain risk profiles that we need to keep a careful eye on. Community testing falls under this group. It's one of the tools we use for evidence-based decision making, and it's one of the earlier indicators that something might be brewing within our population. Thus far, we've conducted 821 community tests, and all of them thus far have been negative, fortunately. Another special group that we're paying attention to are older people, and in particular those residing in long-stay facilities such as old age homes and retirement facilities. We've engaged those persons responsible for running these homes, and we continue to engage them and keep in close contact with them. We've aided with protocols to monitor the patients that are there, and furnish them with an action plan if anyone were to become symptomatic. In addition to that, there are certain other groups, the immunocompromised, of course, and other groups like persons with a travel history. Just for clarity, yes, we are mindful that the borders are closed, but there's certain groups, that come in from other countries. Example, the Barbados group that we had recently come in, that warrant testing, and of course anyone with an epidemiological history or an epidemiological link to someone that may have had COVID or is suspected as having COVID. As long as those persons are symptomatic and there's a little bit there to make us think, well, you know what, out of caution we should be testing, we will. This closes my presentation today. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Minister Cox, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nandram. Members of the media, the floor is now open. Remember to identify yourself and the media house you represent before posing your question. We want to give as many of you an opportunity to pose questions to us, but that means in our limited time, we will have to give each media house a chance to get a maximum of 2 questions in. Once we have completed the pool and time allows, I will come back to you. So let us keep this in mind as we begin taking your questions. 91.9.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
91.9 FM. I just have a quick question with respect to some students. A mother contacted me and wanted to know if the minister could guide any students in any other territories, in particular Grenada. If you have been given any advice to any of those other students who may want to come home, what is the procedure for them applying and that kind of thing? If you could give any insight on that, that would be helpful for them.
Sure.
As well as, I just also want to know, can we get a list of the private facilities that can do testing that have been approved or verified, if that process is complete, or an update on the process if not?
Sure.
Thank you. Good morning.
So thanks for the question, Vern. The advice for students is to apply to the Ministry of National Security, as has been done for the group from Barbados and the other people. You apply to the Ministry of National Security. Remember, the borders are closed, and the Minister of National Security makes the exemptions. So that is the advice. On the list of private laboratories, I am not aware, and I met with the CMO up to yesterday and this morning, that any private lab has been certified to conduct COVID-19 testing. And may I take this opportunity to remind owners of private labs and people who may want to use these labs, under the regulations, there's a $500,000 fine for both the lab and the person if they use these unauthorized labs. And even if and when any lab is authorized, the results of the test must come to the Ministry of Health. So I thank you for the question, and I hope that clarifies the 2 issues that you raised, Vern. Thank you very much.
Minister, I just want to say that I saw an advertisement from a private medical institution. I don't know if it's real or not.
So I saw it. I passed it on yesterday to our legal department, and they are compiling a file to send to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Express?
Being heard? Yeah, good morning. Am I being heard?
Yes, good morning. We're hearing you.
Yes. Okay, morning. Kim Bodram from Express.
Morning.
Minister Dayal Singh and also Dr. Nandram, if you would like to weigh in. 2 questions. One is about students who are still abroad. We have students in Jamaica and Barbados. And so an issue raised given the entry on Monday of Mr. Derek Chin and Ms. Christopher.
Please don't call persons' names.
Oh, I
Everyone
apologize.
is entitled to confidentiality. Please, I urge members of the media, don't call persons' names. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem.
So the question is that these students in Barbados and Jamaica are being asked to quarantine for at least a fortnight before they come in, and then to quarantine again for another fortnight. But there seems to be no guarantee really of telling that persons are telling the truth that yes, I did quarantine, but there's really no way to check that. And so why not just so other persons who may have come in and said yes, I quarantined before I came in, we're not entirely sure. Why not let these students come in and quarantine for the 2 weeks here and go through the process? We know that the Minister of National Security did say on May 12th that these Trinity students in Barbados and Jamaica would be accommodated in a way by government, possibly through a CAL airplane. So, you know, what is happening with that? And is it not harsh to ask these students basically to quarantine for a month, 2 weeks before they get here and 2 weeks after they come here?
Thank you very, yeah.
Again, with regard to the use of Cascadia as a quarantine facility, why, and we understand that the facility also was to protect persons in there who may have pre-existing conditions that made it riskier for them among larger groups. But also Couva and Cora are practically empty at this time. So why not quarantine persons there instead, where the resources are also there instead of Cascadia Hotel?
Okay.
Thanks.
So Couva and Cora were never set up as quarantine facilities. Those were set up as sites for suspected cases and positive cases. So you don't put a known negative case or a highly suspect negative case into Cora or Couva. Couva is a treatment site for positive cases. So you can't put someone there who is negative, who has come back, and it's the same reason we didn't put the 33 people from Barbados into either Cora or Couva. It's the same thing that applies. Same protocols that apply. And the same protocols apply anyone coming into Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of what they did abroad, coming under the condition, and that is made clear to them upfront, that they will be quarantined for 2 weeks. And it is because of these measures that Trinidad and Tobago has done so well. I think the fact that we have been applying these measures sometimes gets lost in our what is now recognized as a world-class response. It is not a boast. It is because we listen to the healthcare professionals, we listen to our public health officials, and we develop our policies and protocols, which have served us very well, and which to date, we don't have community spread. We are still listed as sporadic, and we will continue to advise anyone coming in that they will be subject to 2 weeks of state quarantine. I hope that answers your question, Kim. Thank you.
Okay, we move to CNC3.
Good morning, ministers, and good morning to Dr. Nandram. So, Minister Dayal Singh, this question is for you, and it is in reference to the updated public health regulation whereby any private lab or person tested positive for COVID-19 will be penalized. That is, of course, if the results are not communicated to the CMO or the regional health authority. Minister, if you could just explain what was your rationale for this move if no private labs has yet been approved for COVID-19 testing?
Okay, so that was done to be proactive so that when any lab becomes certified, we don't have to then go now and pass that regulation. We are anticipating that a private lab may become certified, but they know they will become certified under these conditions. We don't want to surprise them and surprise the public who may want to take use of them. It's the same way we have been proactive from the very beginning. We want to be very proactive, open and transparent with the private labs that they understand the conditions under which they will be certified. I hope that answers your question, and thank you very much for it.
ACP News.
Hi, good morning. Prior Bihari, ACPnews.com.
Morning, Prior.
Minister, I just wanted to find out, as we go forward with a new normal, are you going to give guidelines for employers, for example, telling their customers must wash their hands before they enter, wear masks inside of the workplace, things like that. Are you going to give specific guidelines of what is going to take place in the workplace?
Okay, thank you very much, Prior. Yes, and that has
about the app. What's the status with the Ministry of Health app?
Okay, so the app is up and running. Thank you for reminding me. The app is up and running. On the question of employers, Prior, that is very important. The Chief Medical Officer did meet with members of the business community this week and last week to do exactly that, to come up with protocols needed for all sectors, whether it's construction, manufacturing, food, and so on. So that has been done, and it is now up to the agencies or the bodies to roll that down. What I may add, Prior, is that many of these protocols that are being developed are well known around the world. There's a very good model that anybody can download is the McKinsey model. McKinsey is a very good consulting group. It's about a 123-page document, which I am browsing through as we speak. And a lot of these measures are similar to what we keep telling people. Physical distancing as far as possible. Factories may have to do temperature scanning of their employees before they go onto the factory floor. So that will be particular to like manufacturing, construction sites, and so on. So a whole list of protocols have been developed, and they are available online. As I said, the McKinsey model is a very good one, and a lot of it is basic, good public health common sense. So thank you for the question, Prior.
Astronaut Health.
Astronaut Health News. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Dr. Nandram, are the near point of care testing machines for our local hospitals, are they available now? And are the gold standard diagnostic tests, are they useful for COVID-19 testing only, or will these tests and the machines be useful for other respiratory infections as well?
Thank you so much for your question. The question was with regard to the near point of care machines. To address the first part of your question about the availability of these machines, our order has been placed. We've been fortunate enough to actually get one of these machines on hand already, and it is physically in Tobago at the moment. We expect, to have that up and running in the near future. So to address the second part of your question about the gold standard testing and if it's good for anything in addition to COVID, the quick short answer is absolutely yes. These machines were not bought with short-sightedness in guiding our process. We've taken careful consideration into selecting the equipment and the testing methodologies that we employ for national testing. This, the particular instrument that we've selected has a panel of about 25 additional tests that it's able to conduct, and all that's required is that the RHA gets the respective cartridge, and that's it really. So in addition to testing for COVID-19, which is our immediate concern, and making the ability to determine whether someone presenting at accident and emergency is COVID positive or negative within the space of an hour, these machines will bolster the national health response for years to come in more than one area than just infectious disease. The panels that these machines are capable of running include several infectious diseases, tuberculosis, AIDS, HIV. In addition to that, they do oncology testing, MRSA, and other infections. So like I mentioned before, there's a wide spectrum of tests that these machines are capable of running, and that's why that's one of the factors that we took into consideration when selecting the machine. I trust that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Nandram. There's a question online concerning can you advise the population as to the correct types of masks to use for exercising? And this I think this question stems from an article in the New York Post where they're saying 2 boys died in China while wearing masks doing gym classes.
Okay, so Dr. Nandram.
Okay. The recommended mask for public use is the cloth mask. That is the position adopted by many agencies, and that is the position that we would like to adopt as the Ministry of Health. While I hear the concern, arising out of that report, exercise by its nature increases your demand for oxygen, and if you're exercising with a mask and you begin to feel a little bit unwell or lightheaded, please stop immediately and perhaps consider exercising indoors in your home without a mask, if it is that you're prone to that sort of thing. In addition to that, everyone is, may not be the same. People have certain comorbidities that may change the way they respond to exercising with a mask. So out of caution, if you experience any symptoms, please stop exercising right away and consider exercising indoors without a mask in the isolation of your own home.
Thank you. We go to Loop Titi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nika
Morning, Nika.
here from Loop. Minister Deyasing, I just had one question.
Sure.
There's been a bit of confusion regarding the listing of labor unions as essential. I'm not sure if it does, but in the case that this addition makes unions or protesters feel like they can gather, are there any extra guidelines or advice you'd like to give them regarding the limitations that they may still have?
Thank you for the question. So the Prime Minister did advocate and promise that trade unions will be listed as essential. The Attorney General would have prepared the necessary instrument. I would have signed off on that on Tuesday, was it, Minister Cox? Whenever the announcement was made, it could have been Tuesday. And sent to the media. On the issue of protests, that is a matter that you make an application, as you know, to the Commissioner of Police, so I will not comment on that part of it. But as the Minister of Health, I did sign off on the regulations to enable unions to be classified as essential workers. Thank you very much.
Yolande Thomas.
Hi, good morning. Yolande Thomas from Caribbean Lifestyle Communications. Just trying to get a update from Minister Deyasing as to the number of rejected samples from the community testing.
Okay.
If there's any.
I don't have that figure with me. I will ask Corpcom, who is here, to see if they can get it from the CMO, and hopefully during the course of this broadcast, I can get it and give it over to you. You have it?
I can address that.
Sure.
To date, we've not rejected any community samples.
There you go. So, you heard it from the horse's mouth here.
Thank you.
Sorry to say that, but to date, Dr. Nandrama said they have no rejected community samples. Thank you very much.
Thank you. TV6.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Vanessa Cutting, TV6 News.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're hearing you.
Hello.
Hi, morning.
Yes, good morning. Are you hearing us?
Hello.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Hello, Vanessa Cutting, TV6 News. I'm not sure if you're hearing. I'm just going to continue. What I want to know is, what is the ministry's official advice to persons experiencing COVID-like symptoms? I know in the beginning, you all had said probably to phone in or such because you wanted to discourage persons from going into the health facilities. But now that testing has been expanded to these very same sites, is it that persons experiencing COVID-like symptoms should go into the accident and emergency or the health centers?
Thank you for your question, Ms. Cutting. To answer your question, our hotline number is 877-WELL. Anyone with symptoms or concerns or questions and queries about COVID-19, please do call the number. It's a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week hotline. That's 877-WELL. And there are trained doctors on the other end of that line that will assess you, using telemedicine. And then they'll direct you depending on what your symptomology happens to be and they'll advise on an individual case basis. If alternatively, you can call ahead to the health facilities, so they will expect you. Every major hospital has a a parallel COVID site on the compound. So if you are manifesting symptoms, please do call ahead, so they'll expect you. And when you present there, you present to the COVID facility. That's where we are at with regard to symptomatic persons, or persons that think that they may have COVID or symptoms that are COVID-like. So that number again, our hotline number is 877-WELL, W-E-L-L.
Let me just come in here and expand on what Dr. Nandram has just said. A long time ago in this response to COVID, we had set up individual parallel pathways at all our major hospitals in Trinidad and in Tobago, so that if anybody with flu-like symptoms goes into our A&Es, you are immediately shunted to a separate pathway. It's at Port of Spain, San Fernando, Sangre Grande, Eric Williams, and Scarborough. So you are actually sterilized so that you don't enter the normal A&E pathway. So we have two pathways as part of the start of the parallel healthcare system. And we want to urge people, if you have flu-like symptoms, because with the relaxation of measures, you are going to see, hopefully from this weekend, an increase in flu-like symptoms. So you want to encourage people to come in, use your parallel healthcare system at the A&Es. You will be assessed and you'll be told whether you need further treatment or not. So use it, it's there, and we are there waiting for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Newsday.
Hi, Donna. Can you hear me at all? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Sean, where have you been?
Great question. Alive and well. That's a good thing. Yeah. Well, we want to get Minister Cox's reaction to the court ruling that went against Mr. Devant Maraj, but he has since vowed to appeal it.
Yeah, Sean, I know you had to go there.
Secondly, I would have a question for Minister Dale Singh.
Yeah, Sean.
Minister Dale Singh, we have some protesters assembled outside the diplomatic center yesterday, and I do believe that they actually do represent a substantial feeling within the small business community. I've spoken to a couple of people, hairdressers and beauticians and so forth, and they are really feeling it. Is there any assurance or any way that you'd like to reach out to them and say to hold strain, or any assistance to speed up any government assistance, or anything that you'd like to say, Minister Delton?
Thank you, Sean.
Sean, let me go first.
Oh, sure, sorry.
Sean, I would just like to say that I'm happy that it has concluded.
Okay.
Minister Dialsing.
Thank you, Sean. And the public should know that Sean was one of the first people to start to wear a mask, even though when masks were not fashionable. So Sean is a trailblazer. Yes, coming back to your serious question, maybe I need to requote what Dr. Tedros and Dr. I.A.N said. There has to be a well-planned, cautious transition period. That is Dr. I.A.N. Dr. Tedros says there was no guaranteed way of easing restrictions without triggering a second wave of infections. The assurance I want to give all of Trinidad and Tobago is that we are being, yes, you can probably accuse us of being overly cautious, but it is this overly cautious, planning for the worst and hoping for the best, that has Trinidad and Tobago in the enviable position that we are in. That we have only had 8 deaths, as sad as that might be for 8 families. If you take out the cruise ship component of 54 cases, we have only had 64 cases. That is testimony to the measures we implemented. The assurance I want to give everybody is that the government of Trinidad and Tobago knows that all sectors that are not open are going through periods of hardship. However, if we don't learn from other countries that opened too soon, the speed at which we would want to open up other sectors will be slowed down. We will slingshot back into last week. And I don't think the hairdressers want that, the nail techs want that. I understand their need for speed. But if we as a government open the entire economy at the same time, the very people who you are advocating for, and I am advocating for, they will be severely disadvantaged in the medium to long term because we will have to go back and clamp down again, as South Korea has realized, as other countries have realized, Sean. So I understand, we understand the pain, but this is a matter of saving lives. And the issue of hairdressers, nail salons, and Dr. Nandram, you are free to come in here. Close physical contact is defined as being within 3 feet of a person for 15 minutes or more. Am I correct?
Yep, that's accurate,
and it is
Minister.
Close physical contact that encourages spread of the virus. Let us look at the small businesses or the industries we are advocating for to open up. Hairdressers. By definition, within 3 feet for 15 minutes or more is close physical contact. Nail salons, by definition. Massage parlors, by definition. And that is where you will get spread that will be out of control, that will overwhelm your health system, and we will not have flattened the curve. I don't know if the goodly doctor wants to come in here on that.
Minister, you know the point you put forward is scientifically backed. The closer and the lengthier the period of time that persons are in contact, the more likely it is that if one party happened to be infected, that the other party will then become infected, and that's the way the virus is transmitted. At this stage, it would be very easy for us to fall back into a position that we don't want to be in if we reopen too many things too soon. At this point in time, like you've cited, a cautious and strategic way to de-escalate these measures is the most reliable way forward, and that's what we're looking at. We're being guided by the evidence. We're closely monitoring all the cases. We're increasing testing, and we'll take this as guided by the data and as guided by the evidence.
And let me just finish off, because I think, Sean, you have raised a very, very important issue. We just have about a week and 2 days to wait for our results. I'll tell you something. The Chief Medical Officer and myself will be having sleepless nights from Monday, because it is from Monday, a week after the lifting of these initial restrictions, that you are going to start to get this second wave of infections. And we have said publicly, depending on the results we get, if the results are good, it is possible that phases 2 and 3 and forward could be compressed. We are not unsympathetic to the plights of small businesses, to the plights of sole traders, but this is in the national interest. And depending on the results we get next week, because next week is a critical week, and that is why we didn't open the economy by flipping a switch. We did it like a dimmer. You turn it up slowly, let the light shine dimly. So let's go with the dimmer approach and gradually turn it up. See if we could take the load, make sure our hospitals don't get overwhelmed, And based on the kind of numbers we get by the end of next week, as was indicated at the Diplomatic Center last week, Saturday, then it is quite possible that other industries, we can look to compress phases 2 and 3 and 4 moving forward. But right now, the best public health advice, which has led us to being recognized globally as a leader, the best public health advice is that based on saving lives and not overwhelming our healthcare system. Just be a little bit patient for a week and 2 days again. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, Minister. I-95.5.
Good morning, everyone. Whitfield Jenner from I-95.5.
Morning.
I don't know if either of you two gentlemen can state of the 821 tests, community tests that would have been conducted, how many of those would have been tests done in Tobago?
I don't know if Dr. Nandram has
that
it.
data.
We don't have it. We will try and get it for you, sir. Okay?
Okay.
But we are testing throughout Trinidad and Tobago. I don't even know how many per county in Trinidad. I just have the national figure, but we will try and get Tobago for you, sir.
That's it, one question. Okay, we go back to 91.9. One question, please. Are we not hearing you? We're not hearing what? 91.9. So could we move to Express and then we'll go back to 91.9? Can we go to Express, please, and we'll go back to 91.9.
Thank you. Morning again, Kim Woodram.
Morning, Kim.
Minister Delsing, hi again. I just have to go back to the students because there was part of my question I don't think was fully addressed, which is really not about the quarantine that they're required to subject themselves to when they get back here or if they get back here, but that they're being asked to quarantine for a fortnight prior to being considered, being allowed to leave wherever they are, Jamaica, Barbados. So the questions that have been put to us is that not a bit harsh and unreasonable given that there's really no way to tell if someone has truly quarantined before coming here?
Okay.
So yes.
Yeah, sure. So Kim, we implemented that across the board. We are not penalizing any students in Jamaica or Barbados. You may recall we advised the 33 persons in Barbados to do the same thing. We are advising everyone, regardless of whether you're a student, a cruise ship passenger, out of an abundance of caution to protect your own health and the health of Trinidad and Tobago when you come back as far as possible, and it's for their own good, whether they're in Jamaica, to quarantine yourself to make sure you don't get infected. So it's a policy across the board. It was applied to the 33 persons in Barbados from the cruise ship, and it will apply to any cohort that is coming back here. So we are not singling out, as the question infers, that the persons, students in Jamaica or Barbados do anything differently than we are asking any other group of persons or individuals to do. I hope that answers your question, Kim.
Thank you. We want to go to Power 102.
Good morning, Head Table. Kimberly D'Souza from Power 102 and ISO Media.
Morning.
I just have just one question for Dr. Nandram. Dr. Nandram, I know yesterday Minister Delsing said that when we begin testing in Tobago, we will be using the gene expert machine method and not the PCR. And I think one of the reasons
No, I never said that. I also said the gene expert uses PCR. It's a different machine. Okay? All right, no problem.
Right, so just can you tell us, well then my question changes. Is there a difference in the PCR method? Why are we using the gene as opposed to the PCR machine?
Okay.
Okay, that comes down to the type of machine and the turnaround time and the convenience of the machine. When we did a quick health system analysis, we found that the bottleneck in our health system that should be addressed was at the accident and emergency departments in getting patients a very quick turnaround time. Using the current methodologies, the turnaround time was about 24 to 48 hours, and we could do better. So we sought out a gene expert machine, which does use the same molecular technology, except that the way in which it's packaged and utilized is different. The traditional method uses a multi-stage process. You have to manually get the genetic material out of the virus, amplify that, and then test that. And they're all separate phases. And that takes a period of time and specialized persons with specialized training. The gene expert machine, on the other hand, does all of that in a singular cartridge. So what the lab tech would do is simply put the sample in, put the cartridge into the machine, and then have the machine do the hard work. And that will afford us the ability to give a test result within an hour.
Wow.
And that's the main difference. It's that it's the same technology, it's just how it's packaged and the turnaround time. And it's for that reason that the gene expert was selected.
Thank you, Doctor. We go back to 91.9. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yes, we are hearing you.
All right, great. So I just got a request from one person who was working with the contact tracing team, and they wanted to know if there are things in place to give them some compensation. I know some of them may be attached to NGOs or so. Minister, if you could give any insight, they would like some clarity on that.
When we engage the Red Cross indicated that they will be doing this without charge. We engaged the Red Cross. I've forgotten her name now, Miss
Jill.
Miss what?
Jill.
Jill DeBerg. Yes, and that was made very clear to us, and we accepted their offer that the Red Cross will be doing this as part of their corporate social responsibility. If the Red Cross has changed their minds and they now want to be paid, Ms. Jill DeBerg will have to come back to us. We also have 50 contact tracing through the School of Nurses. They receive, I think, a stipend. But that is what the Red Cross told them, and I'm quite surprised to hear now that the Red Cross has in fact changed their minds. As far as the community test is concerned, we have 45 community tests done in Tobago out of the 821. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Astronaut Health, one question, please.
Annette Stewart, Astronaut Health News. Dr. Nandram, is there ever any medical circumstance or other circumstance when a serological test might be applicable for a particular patient?
At this point in time, the WHO's position, and by extension the Ministry's position, is that serological tests are not for use in any clinical setting. The WHO only endorses use of certain serological tests in a research-only setting, not in a hospital setting, not for clinical use, not for patients, in a research setting. And I trust that answers your question.
Okay, 95.5. One question, please.
Oh, no, I didn't have another question. Thank you.
Okay. Well, your hand is up.
That was my accident.
Okay. Very good. And I'd like to ask the Minister of Health to give us a closing statement, please.
Thank you very much, Minister Cox. And thank you, Dr. Nandram, for explaining the enhanced ramp-up testing as we go forward. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media. In closing off this morning, there's a group of people I would like to congratulate Minister Cox. As you know, I've been making unannounced visits to food places. And I think the food places represents an area of high contact and high movement. And the results that we are going to get next week will be indicative of how successful we are in making these baby steps towards opening up the economy. What is going to be crucial moving forward is how we adopt new practices, and new measures. So it's no longer social distancing, it's physical distancing. We could still be sociable, but that is crucial. The wearing of masks as far as possible when you're outside is going to be critical, absolutely critical, to see if we could advance phases 2, 3, and 4, to give some extra hope to the same persons who are clamoring, and I understand, for small businesses to be opened. But we have your backs on this. We want to save lives. The sanitization has to be part of normal, everyday business and office practice. We have to adopt these measures as part of a routine. Staying home if you are ill is going to be crucial because it just takes one person to go into an office, to go into the public, cough and sneeze, and you infect 20 persons. In visiting food establishments, and this is just a purely unscientific bit of research on my part, I am paying particular attention to doubles vendors. And I drove past, and I seen Vern smiling there. I drove past about 5 doubles vendors to date. One in Curab Junction, one in the gas station in El Socorro, one outside my office on Park Street, one that opened back on Edward Street this morning. And I must say, the doubles vendors, those 5 I have visited so far, seem to be so well prepared, have adopted the measures that I really want to congratulate them. They are leading by example. They are leading by example. And if we can get all, I see Gwendolyn laughing again, but this is true. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we can beat this thing. We can beat this thing. We can hopefully open up a bit sooner if we work together, and adopt these simple public health measures. We are not asking to practice rocket science. No one has to spend a huge sums of money. A simple mask could be made from an old t-shirt, a bandana. Right? Wash your hands. Wash down your surfaces at home with bleach and water. Inexpensive. All these measures are so inexpensive. And I've just been told that the Red Cross is still voluntary. Jill de Burke has confirmed that. Thank you very much. So all these measures are simple measures that we as individuals have under our total control. It is not for a government, it ought not to be for a government to say, wash your hands. You shouldn't have to pass a law to do that. Food establishments, put up a plexiglass screen between yourself and your patrons. Simple measures. Simple measures. So moving forward, if we want Trinidad and Tobago to get back to some type of normalcy under the new regime, the government has done its part. Now we want to partner with individuals. Let the doubles men and women be the example that I have seen, and I want to congratulate them. And if we do that, we will get through this together, stronger, and we could try and open up more and more, hopefully in a more compressed period of time. Minister Cox, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. We have come to the end of today's virtual media conference. Do remember that the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Communications are your only credible sources of government information on COVID-19. For many of us, it has been a long time since we fellowshipped with the people we love. Our churches, mosques, and temples have been closed for weeks, and our services moved online. But try as we may, it is not the same as the face-to-face interactions experienced when we meet. I understand this, and I know exactly what you are missing, because I am missing it too. But our need to get back into our places of worship cannot override the greater need to slow the spread of the virus and ensure we all live to see another day. As countries around the world, including Trinidad and Tobago, reopen little by little, it is easy to forget the threat that COVID-19 poses. However, the hard facts are that the virus has killed close to 300,000 persons and infected over 4 million. COVID-19 thrives in crowds, and let us not give it the environment it needs. One day, we will return to our places of worship, but that day has not come as yet. In the meantime, let us continue to be creative and find new ways to keep in touch. The government values the important role that religious institutions play in our society. And remember, these measures are in place to protect all of us. I am Donna Cox, Minister of Communications. Thank you for joining us today as the government continues its efforts to flatten the curve and beat COVID-19. Stay home, stay safe. May God bless Trinidad and Tobago.